Hey geeks, welcome back to the series of YouTube videos on all about JWT. Here we are understanding all about the concept about JWT by doing implementation in React and Node.js. We have covered a lot of topics in this series of videos. In this current video, we are going to understand what is we have so far understood about some wrappers component and some basic components from the app, like what is app.js and how we are handling the routing and all. Just basic React stuffs, but let's try to understand now the code in detail. And this part is this part of the video, I mean especially this video, is going to be very important. Why I'm saying this? Because this is where we are actually going to understand where and how JWT is getting implemented inside this front-end app. We have so far understood that we are adding all the JWT key, where and all, and how we are setting using that context API. We'll understand context API in more detail in this video only at the end, but let's try to understand first what is the code which is handling all the JWT in React front-end. So to understand that, if you go to the third article of my on my Medium platform, links will be provided for sure. So this in this section right now we are trying to understand that detailings of the code, and when we try to understand that, the main important steps which I'm just trying to make you guys understand is this one. So this is heart of JWT in front-end app, my Axios. So Axios is the library which we use for requesting or hitting the endpoints, the server endpoint, the server APIs. But here we are using in this, especially in this util function, we are creating our own my Axios instance. The reason for being is like we want to intercept the request. Let's say we are requesting using my Axios, but while any API is getting requested, we have a requirement where we want to add some extra info to the request, which is going to be made by our instance of Axios. So there is two instances. One is actual Axios instance we get from library directly. We are just modifying a little, adding some stuffs. This functionality provided by my Axios only. So this which is this concept is called intercepting. Intercepting is like intercepting the request and response according to your need. That we are doing here. So why we need that in our case is like when we request an endpoint which is a secured endpoint, we want to add our JWT token. For that, we may be adding the token by itself in the Axios header directly, but just imagine if you have a lot of APIs in your code base, you don't want to repeat that addition of access token to each of this secured endpoint. So what we do in that case is like we create our own our own instance of Axios, and in that what we do is we intercept the request and response as per need. In our case, we are mostly needed in request intercepting. We will be intercepting the request. So request will be intercepted, and we will add the JWT token to that request in the header, and then secure API will be automatically respond with that. And here is the place where we are handling that. What if JWT gets expired? What if JWT access token expired? Or what if JWT refresh token expired? All of these things we handle in this part of what you say, the code. Yeah. So moving ahead, our first important stuff to understand is like we are simply importing the Axios from Axios library, and we are giving the timeout. Timeout is just like after how many milliseconds you want your request to be solved. If after that millisecond request is not solved, you want your APIs to say that it's timeout, that you didn't get any response. You don't want to keep asking or keep the request in infinite for infinite time. if the API is not responding, right? For that reason, we set the timeout for the particular call, right? For that, we are adding so we have just created a Axios our own instance, which we want to add interceptor with 5,000 timeout millisecond. Okay. Now this request handler is a function which is we will be using. So this request handle gets called whenever any request will be happening using this MyAccess instance. So if we are exporting this MyAccess constant after at the end of this file, and we are using this MyAccess. Now wherever this MyAccess will be used, that used for requesting any endpoint, that endpoint will also, before getting fired, the request getting fired from the here this code, first it will try to run this code. So that's why this is called an interceptor. So here what we are doing is, let me just try to first make you understand. And there is another function, one is response handler. So this is request handler, that request interceptor. So if for every request we are attaching or doing some running some code here, we will understand it. Similarly, we have this response handler. Right now we are not doing anything. We are just giving back the response we obtained from the server as it is. But if you have the requirement, you can update the response you received from the server so that you can utilize the best way you want. Error handling is the place where we will be saying that, okay, if any error happens with the request, how we are going to tackle with that if you are using MyAccess instance then. Now coming to this part here, this is the actual interceptor call. So this was just the function to be used inside the interceptor. So main code is only this much. So when you have an Access instance, your Access instance, you have something called interceptor you get. Inside that you get two function, two things. One is request, and then you got response thing. Request will have object will have a use function, and response will also have a use function which you will pass your request function and response function as you want to use. So that's why there is two interceptor. One is to handle the request, whatever the request is going to happen using Axios, that we are intercepting here. After this, it is going to the server, right? So this is acting as a mid, what you can say checkpoint, or you can say some bridge via which you need to go to the next endpoint, to the server. So this is front end, this is back end. In mid, you have this Axios thing, which is what eventually doing is executing some piece of code before actually sending the request to the actual server end. Okay, so that's the call our interceptor. So we'll understand what we are doing in this function request handler, which is defined here. And then for response, we are also intercepting it, but actually we are not doing it. I've just created a placeholder for that so that you guys can use that for whatever requirement you have. So this is the response, and let's try to understand the request handler, what we are doing here. So what we are saying that whenever any request comes with this MyAccess instance, first get the local storage, check the local storage with this key hacker user. If this key present, then get the value, and you apply you add a header to the request with the value of this hacker user. Basically this hacker user, what it is doing, if you remember when we were trying to understand that what happens when user does login. In response, we will be understanding that component for sure after this piece of code understanding. Then just try to understand this part, that when user will log in, the response will have the access token stored inside the browser under storage section, local storage section. That we are saying that, hey, check in the browser local storage if this is present or not. If this is present, then what we are saying that you add the authorization header. Now authorization header is a bearer, the bearer token we are going to add to this header authorization. If you remember that in our server, if I just want to give you this idea to you guys, in our server, you have a middleware, and here we are just checking that this authorizer header, whether it is present or not, and that's how we are verifying that the request which is coming to the server is valid or not. This is the middleware, right? If you remember the tutorial, the episode of in this series where we explained this middleware in the server side, in the second article of this JWT series. So this authorization, who is setting so that this authorization is getting received in the server here, right? If I just go again to that function here, not here, this is where we are adding that authorization header. All right, guys. And then here, if you see that this authorization header we are adding with this access token, which is fetched from local storage. But what is this bearer means here? So let's try to understand that. I've explained this here in the note of the article as well, that this bearer token is nothing but just a way of communication for accessing secured API, which gives access to the bearer of this token. So it's like way of communication for accessing a secured API. It's a standard given, like just like for other standard given, like basic auth is another way of communication. Similarly, this is for accessing secured API. We use the bearer, a way of communication. There is nothing else, just a way of communication to understand this is about accessing secured API. That's it. You can add anything you want. Now here, if you see, what we are trying to do is to do don't add token to the API call, which don't need token. Yeah, you remember it. If you don't want to use this in your request, you don't want to add this token, then what you can do is you can simply make it not use of, you don't use my Axios instance. Instead, you can simply use the Axios instance. Just import this there. You will see that we have not used my Axios everywhere. We have used directly Axios wherever we need it. My Axios will be used where you just need the token to be attached to your request. So I hope this gives you guys an idea that whenever an API request will be happening with this my Axios instance, this will add the bearer token, basically saying that, hey, give me access because I have the bearer token with me. Please give me the access. That's the very common way to say this. Now response, if you see, we are not doing anything. Now very vital part here, we have this error handling. If you see, we have error handling in everywhere, a request and response as well. All right then, so we are understanding this error handler. Now here we are just saying that if server gives 401 status code error, then you check. So if you see, mostly 401 error we are providing when there is some issue with the token. So that's why we are checking the 401. If you remember, whatever failure we had in the token related stuffs, if you remember that code, if I just want to remind you guys, let me just show you instantly. If you remember that this we are throwing 401 via middleware. So everywhere where there is a token issue with the token, we are sending 401. Now we are receiving that 401 as a status in the front end and checking if this is a token issue or not. So what we are saying right now, once you receive any error related to token, you capture this in front end. That's how we are capturing it. So this is like Interceptor is capturing it. So this is a very important part right now that we are handling. Earlier we used to not do intercept and it will create a lot of issue. So this is a very refined and cool way to write and handle the any token related errors I found. So that's why I am just curious to explain you guys this. So this is like first what we are doing, that if there is error with that, which means that the token is expired or something happened with the token, right? The first thing we are going to do is remove that token. You remember when setting this token to the local storage, I was just saying when trying to understand this auth context, I said this, that if the local storage contains this token, it means user is logged in. So you must have asked that time that Javed, what if the token is expired? Here it is the case. If the system finds the token is expired, it will immediately remove that token from the local storage, and that's how you won't find the token inside the browser local storage when you have a expired token with you. Okay, That's I think that solves your mm, that's answered your question if you already had in your head. Now this one is another stuff. This is a console I should have removed anyway. That's fine. Now there is something called failure code token expired error. We are sending this failure code token expired error. If you see, let me just check that. This, if you see, if this is token expired error inside middleware of server, we are saying that, or if this is JSON Web Token error, you simply respond this message. So it's like here we are checking if that is the case or not. So let me just jump to that code again. So if you're checking this, if this is a token expire error, then what you do is that go to this endpoint where we are saying that refresh my token. So this is the place we are refreshing the token. So let's say your access token got expired. How it can get expired? After some time, whatever set in the server, right? Once that token is expired, this error will happen, cached by the front end, and you will see if it is expired. Let's try to refresh that token using this endpoint. So this is the endpoint which we created in the server side, saying that okay, we want to refresh. Now, how this will refresh the token we will understand in a moment, but let me try to explain this first. This line, this is very important line. With credential is very vital. So let's try to understand this from here. So if I just try to make you guys understand this point here, yeah, this is the note I have written, which is very important for this to understand. So this value with credential I am setting is to true. The main reason behind the concept of with credential making it true is like the cross-site credential requests should be allowed to do. If you want to do that, any request with the credential such as JWT, and as well as with the something like what you can say, there is some other request. I hope there is some cookie as well. Yeah. So here I have explained that cookie part as well. So there are two parts. One is if it is a cross-site request, then you are allowed, if you are passing this as a param, as a true value, with credential is a true value, as well as if you don't want to get ignored, the token responded with in the response, you don't want your token to be ignored from the request response, then also you need to set. So in case of login, we are receiving the cookie, right? Not here. In this case, we are not receiving cookie. We are just receiving a refresh token, access token. But in case of login API, we will understand we are receiving that. There as well, I have used with credential true. In our case, here this is just a cross-site request should be allowed, which with the credential. That's why I had to make it true. That's all, nothing else. If you don't do that, you won't be able to work this properly. You can try this out. If you remove that, the request will not be successful. Done. So you will see some errors in the console. Now this one, I can't go everything to explain like errors and all, because I have set myself very limited time. So I don't want to explain the error part here that broke the code and then explain to you guys. But you guys can experiment it. I've already done that. That's what I just explained, that something with error will happen. You can see that in console. Now coming to this, that once the refresh token is hit, what happens? Like cookie will have inside the local storage, right? If I just go to this website, this is our website, right? Now if I just check the storage here, this is the cookie we have. So when this request will be sent to the server, it's already this cookie will be attached by the browser with this request, so that the endpoint code execution will receive that cookie, which means this one. We are not, you just try to understand it. I am not setting cookie value here. I'm not sending any value from front end. Any refresh token I'm not sending from here. what's happening here is this cookie inside browser is automatically getting attached to this request, and that you define here that you can, if you want to control that not to allow this token to be attached with every request, then you can define by yourself using the domain. What should be the domain, what should be a path to which it can attach. For now I have set for everything, like all localhost domain at all path this cookie will be attached. You can make it very more narrow down, just make it that on/r token only this request, this cookie should be attached. So in this case this will be attached, and then this request will reach to the server, and server will verify the cookie and refresh token. If refresh token is valid, then a new access token will be generated, and that will be responded here. We will receive that, we will simply store that here inside the local storage. So you remember we removed that, and then now we are re-adding it. So our behind the scenes work just completed, like user is still not aware that something failed or what, right? Now if the case happens that this cookie which got sent is also expired, then this catch will happen. I mean here the code execution, meaning this will fail, right? This request will fail, that will get caught here, and it means that refresh token is also expired. Then we are saying that you remove the whatever inside the local storage, and then you simply reload this. It means that when you remove something from local storage, and anyway I don't know why I'm just removing it again, I could have ignored this, but anyway that's you can remove this from here. Okay, what if this catch doesn't happen in that case? Okay, anyway this was not required, I guess this is extra unnecessary stuff, but window.location.reload I am doing. The reason for this I am doing is, like, let's say token got expired. When you reload the page, if the token is not found in the local storage, you are redirected to the login page. That's the code logic we have written inside our logic, where we have written that initiation part, that if it is not logged in, then you redirect it to the. So let's say you have this component top hackers. Here we have defined that when this is a secured component, so secure component we are handling in this private route, and if this is not logged in, then you simply route it to this. And when this will say that it is not logged in, when there is no token found in the local storage. And that's how we understood this, I guess. I hope this is clear. Let's try to go here. So this error handling part is very clear now. You know right now very well that how this refresh token gets called, how we handle that, how we log out the user. The logout happens is like when you reload this, when you remove this part and then reload this, logout happens automatically, because this access page, any secure page won't be able to get access to the front end, because every time it will try to access any secure page, this will come into the mid, and it will try to check whether the user is logged in or not, and then that's how it will redirect to the login page. So I'm done with this explanation. I guess I gave a lot of time here, so I should not have done, but I hope this made it more clear to you guys. So error handler is done. Now let's try to understand this part where we are saying that register login, what is the hook we are using and all. So this code will explain that how we are registering the user and how we are logging the user. So we can do that by going by going to the hook part. So if I just go to hook part, there are two hooks we have defined. The hooks basically we defined so that we can separate out the different API calls which we can reuse later on in different pages. That's why we create a separate custom hook, I would say, in the React application, and then we utilize that. So use auth is like for two hooks, register and login. So if you see, I am just creating one hook with a use effect. So I'm not going to explain how this custom hook works. You guys can read it. It's not a React tutorial. So I'm just setting this register endpoint calling this from here. And what this will do is we are just want to, so in case of register, we're not doing very much stuff here. Just call this endpoint with the whatever the user has requested via the form. If I just want to go there, if you go to register, this is the 3 value we are giving that will be received here, and that will get in the body of the request, register request endpoint, and that's how it will get registered. That's it. Now coming to login part, here is the one important stuff I wanted to explain. It is the same again, that if you go to 2 values are captured, these are username and password, and again as I said with credential is also used. So same concept here, that cross-site request with credential is happening, and the second is your cookie. When this request goes to the server, a response will be received. Inside that response, 2 responses will be there. One is access token, another is cookie. Cookie will contain the refresh token to be stored in the browser cookie. That will be only allowed when you have with credential to set true in the request of this endpoint. So that's why this is very important to set. And that's all I wanted to share about this hook. Now huge hacker is another hook which is just for this one. When you access this page, which is a secured page, you need to have the access token with this request, so that it will go to server and get the secured data with, so that you can see these top hackers. Now if you try to check here, if you see the Axios I'm using is just this Axios coming directly from Axios library for registration as well as for login. It means that with the register request and with login request, this will not attach any access token with the request, right? Because if you remember, the Axios instance only has that capability, which we are using here. So if you see here, I'm using not Axios but my Axios, which is we are importing via util my Axios. You remember we defined that interceptor and all that we are requesting here. This, whenever you use this instance in this app, it means that you are saying that, hey, I want to add this access token with this request, so that it will be received to the server and then get back to this UI and give the import and secure data, so which is not allowed for an anonymous user but for logged in user only. In that case, this API will get hit with the access token. So see here, I'm not sending any kind of token here. I'm just using my Axios component. Now my Axios interceptor is handling everything for me, that if the access token expired or not, or if the access token will be sent with this, and if it is expired, what to do with that, all are handled in this instance. I'm just saying that, hey, I just need to call this top hacker endpoint. Please let me call it with the whatever requirements with the access token and token related stuffs. That's all. I'm not, and this is just error stuff, so you don't need to go inside. You can read it what I'm doing here. This is not important to understand right now at this part of this tutorial. So this is just very simple to, I guess, understand. Now if I just go to the article, let's try to understand where we are right now in terms of understanding. So login we have understood, registers we have already understood. I've explained this data loading error trigger part, what I am doing here, this all concept, this all in there. If you're already React developer and you know how to use custom hook, you must be aware on this. I hope so. Here I'm not going to repeat the same thing. I think I've covered all of them. I've also explained this use hackers, this one to you guys. Here we are, the actual stuff, actual utilization of the JWT token is happening. Now auth context, this auth context is very important to understand. And then this is the place where we are setting the logging related stuff, right? So let's try to understand that log inside context. So SRC, if you go inside this SRC, you have the context folder where we have one context. I think I've already explained this in a previous tutorial. I will just give you a overview on that by using this tutorial here in this article. So here, if you see, what I'm trying to make you understand that here you create a context, and what you can do is you can simply export this context, and you create an auth provider where you are setting the value of the all data which you want to be available to the whole website. So that value you pass here, and that's where this auth provider you create. So auth provider, you see, is just a functional component which is receiving a children, and then it is just after receiving the children, it is trying to render that with these values available to this children. That's it. That's it is doing. We could have exported this auth context directly, but we have exported use auth context instead. The reason for being is, like I've also explained there, if I just try to understand is, but if you check the code exported, but instead this avoid importing this. So the reason is use auth context requires whenever you want to use this, let's say you exported auth context in any file. In that case, what will happen, that you will also need to import use context so that you can utilize this auth context, right? So you will have to import both. One is this auth context and use context at the same time in every page. To avoid importing both of them, what you can do, that you can create simple one line, and then you simply import this one, so that you don't need to import use context every time. You just need to import use auth context, and then you are done. You can utilize this. And how this use auth context and auth provider are getting utilized, we will be learning in the next video, where we are explaining the all components, where components is using the data and rendering itself, so that you can visualize these website pages. So I think we have covered all required stuffs in this episode of this YouTube. Let's try to understand all components in the next part. To video is anyway is going to be becoming so long. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode. Hope you are still with me and enjoying the tutorial. Bye bye.